requested to make my presentation in 4 minutes, so I'll get directly to the point and not read each slide. I'll share these slides later with anyone that wants a copy. I have many comments to make in the broader discussion about the DEI policy, but wanted to take this time to clarify the state of laws, relevant laws. The Foundation for Diversity Policy in a U.S. educational institution draws largely from Civil Rights Law of 1964 and Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 that prohibits sex-based discrimination in educational programs and activities that receive federal funds. Feminist groups fought for this amendment where the Civil Rights Law of 1964 overlooked women as a protected class in education and education employment opportunities. Title IX has had a profound and positive impact on women in the United States by addressing and remedying gender-based discrimination in educational settings, improving their lives in a variety of ways that I've listed below. I do not believe I would be here today if it wasn't for civil rights law in Canada that protect women in education. When I was studying, financing was available and mentors sought me out and encouraged me as I studied in a STEM field as a woman from an otherwise traditional household. Consequently, I was the first person in my extended family to graduate from university. In the past decade, the interpretation of Title IX opened women's spaces and opportunities to men that identified as women. Protected classes under civil rights law were immutable characteristics until 2011, when President Obama interpreted Title IX to include men that identify as women. In 2017, the Trump administration repealed the interpretation, but then President Biden used executive order to reinstate it in 2021. There's an election in 10 months, and a Republican president will likely end Biden's executive order. I read through several policies in the UPR system in preparing for this meeting, and I see two policies written with the gender interpretation of Title IX, and the draft policy that we are discussing today will be the third. My question is, do we really need a DEI policy for LGBT? What is the benefit and what are the consequences? In the Transfondo document, the campus recinto is asking us to choose 3 or more of the 6 categories presented to be the focus of a DEI policy. I ask that we recommend to steer away from the LGBT category for lack of legal and scientific rationale. I want to clarify, I believe every person should be treated with dignity, including people that identify with a gender different from their biological sex. In other words, people with gender dysphoria. However, I'm very concerned that a DEI policy for gender will afford special privileges to men that identify as women at the expense of women. The law is certainly unsettled, and I worry that there is a lack of evidence-based science for gender-affirming care as the cure for gender dysphoria. I feel intellectually and morally responsible to understand the risks on this matter before endorsing the practice. Note that the draft policy does not clarify what constitutes a violation and what is a disciplinary action. A DEI policy for transgender threatens to create, one, a culture of fear around intellectual inquiry into what is happening in the social and physical environment that has led families with children as young as 2 to seek gender-affirming care at unprecedented rates. Secondly, this is a trend and ideological phenomenon that will have long-term unintended consequences for society. And third, the policy would be unstable as the foundational interpretation of gender as sex could be withdrawn. Freedom of speech and academic freedom are protected under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which will supersede a policy leaving the university liable for lawsuits. And my final slide. I ask that we recommend to steer away from the LGBT category for lack of legal and scientific rationale. And I end with just 2 facts for you to consider. First, studies show that over 2/3 of minors transitioning are girls, implying a peer influence driving self-diagnosis and not objectivity or fact that in the end disproportionately impacts girls. And second, faulty self-diagnosis are significant that premiums have gone up up to 5 times higher due to malpractice lawsuits in gender-affirming care of minors. I put in some links and there's tons of research if anybody's interested. So I can share this presentation. If you have any questions, my request is at the top.
Gracias, Teresa. Fíjate, nos gustaría que nos enviaras también el documento, por favor.
For sure, yes. I can also send my comments.
Ok. Entonces, ¿quieren reaccionar? ¿Alguien quiere hacerle preguntas a Teresa?
Hola,
Sí.
José Caraballo Cueto por acá.
Adelante, Caraballo.
Yo creo que no hay muchos abogados en esta facultad. No sé si todavía están los de Derecho Mercantil por ahí, pero yo considero que hay unas terminologías legales que la mayoría de nosotros no dominamos porque no es nuestra área. Y asimismo también, no recuerdo que en esta facultad hayan especialistas en temas de género, y pues se pudiese buscar en otras facultades algún especialista o alguna especialista que pueda abundar más sobre estos términos para entonces pues tener una información, poder tomar una decisión informada, porque pues cada disciplina es un mundo y cuando yo recuerdo hace poco que hubo un ex juez que decía a los abogados les encanta hablar de economía y a los economistas les encanta hablar de leyes o de derecho, pero yo pues considero que lo ideal es siempre pues buscar las personas que han estudiado esto por muchísimos años y conocen las diferentes terminologías y nos puedan orientar adecuadamente.
Thank you. Can I make a comment? Okay, so my background is health
Yes.
economics, but I'm not a lawyer for sure, but I have sought legal counsel on this matter. And I agree that there should be a broader conversation. And unfortunately, we're just in the faculty and we have to make our comments, but this should also go up. I'm not sure how the hierarchy works, how this information can get up in an interdisciplinary way. We can have these conversations, but this conversation is necessary. We can't just stand by when we are liable for the consequences and implications here. I don't think you need to be a lawyer to recognize that there are contentious issues here.
Okay. ¿Alguna otra pregunta, reacción? O si quieren hablar directamente del documento. Recuerden que en el plan estratégico, en nuestra misión y parte de nuestra